Hi there, welcome to the ADK Rock and Metal channel. My name is Kirk Horton, and today's guest is the guitar player and songwriter composer of the tech metal supergroup Utopia, who have just released their sophomore album. It's entitled Shame, and it came out on the 2nd of February. So thanks for joining us, John. Before we get into it to discuss your album and talk through some of the contemporary issues surrounding the band, how's your week been so far? What does a working week look like for you at the moment?
Lots. Well, it changes every week, but I've got a lot of teaching on this week. I've got like 90 guitar students, and then I teach at Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts and Liverpool Uni. In between that, it's bits of practice, bits of gigs if they come up, the odd tour if that comes up, and then looking after the girls and doing the school run and all that sort of business. So, very boring, really.
That's a bit of a trip, though, isn't it? Dropping the kids off at school and then having to drive from Lytham St Anne's, which is near Blackpool, all the way to Liverpool.
Yeah, well, it's okay. It's a once a week thing, so I kind of managed to cram it in. I set off at 6. That on that day I don't drop the girls off, but on that day I set off at 6 and then get into Liverpool dead early and just do some admin on, sit on the laptop, smash some coffee, and then I start teaching there at 9, and then I finish. I do like a full sort of morning and afternoon there at Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. Then I walk up to the uni and I do as many hours as people want there until I'm done. Then go and get pissed probably afterwards.
Yeah, you're a busy musician. You need to do that for your release, don't you, at the end of
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
end
yeah,
of the day.
yeah.
So, first question that intrigued me about the band, I don't remember Stalker, your debut album, coming out in 21, so that just passed me by somehow, which I'm ashamed to say because I certainly would love it based on this record.
What?
So Utopia is a bit of a tech metal supergroup. What were the reasons for starting the band in 2020? Because you're all busy people and you have all these other projects. Why did you need to do it there and then in 2020?
I suppose it just the fancy took me all of a sudden to do it. So basically, so historically, when I was in high school and college, I was massively into Dillinger Escape Plan, Converge, Agoraphobic Nosebleed. Name an extreme metal band, I was really into them. Faith No More as well, though, and like Alice in Chains and lighter stuff, but very musical, great bands like that. And then so I was listening to a lot of that and playing that kind of music, but I didn't really understand music very well. And so when I was at uni, I decided that I was going to sort of embark on trying to play jazz properly and trying to understand how to play it. And so I got the Mark Levine, I think it might be knocking about over there, the Mark Levine Jazz Theory book, and just read it and read it, and I didn't get it, and I read it again, and I didn't get it, and I read it again until you just become familiar with it, and then something clicked, and I was like, oh God, that must mean that this is related to this. And then one day I was like, oh, I get it. I think I get music theory now. I think I get how it's all constructed. And so at that point, I was playing a band called Micro Sleeper with Reese. I was living with Reese, actually, Chris Reese. We were living. He was the first person I met in Preston when we were 18. That's where we both were at uni, and we lived together and did Micro Sleeper. And then, so we finished uni, and I'd kind of got some chops together. And then I sort of stopped playing metal at all for well over 10 years. And all I played was jazz. That was all I played. Jazz and classical music, and just becoming trying to become like a working guitarist through learning how to sight read proficiently and be an improviser. But my first albums were all jazz stuff that I'd written, featuring various Manchester or Swedish or Julian Arguelles now, who lives in Austria, various people like that, and writing original jazz music. But I always wanted to kind of go back and do the jazz thing. Now, after lockdown, jazz is kind of a hard thing to do remotely. I'll send you my part, you do a thing, because there's so much. More than half of it is about listening to what they're doing right then and responding to it with something appropriate. It's like an improvising thing based on an understanding of music theory or harmony, I guess. And so I thought, right, well, maybe now is the time to try and put together a group where everything is very strictly written, and there might be the odd solo here, but it's all strict parts that I can send to a drummer, send to Aaron McSporran, the bass player, and we can make a really extreme album. Now's the time, I think, to do this, because we can all do it now remotely without too much problem. And so that's kind of why I thought that would be a good time to do it. It was something to do, and logistically, it felt like the right time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That, and I was looking at your CV, some of the big names, certainly in the classical and pop world, that you've played for as a live touring guitar player. So Alan Jones, famous for, that is the guy who did "Walking in the."
Yeah.
Is it "Walking in the Air" or "Walking in the Snow"? The song, what's it
Yeah,
called?
the Snowman.
Yeah.
The Walking the Air from the Snowman.
That's it, yeah. And then obviously Russell Watson. I think he's from Salford, and he's from Manchester, isn't he?
Yeah.
International renowned for his great vocals. Which
Yes.
other artists have you worked for outside of I know you in jazz and in pop?
I've done bits and pieces. I did Sting's show, The Last Ship, which was like Sting's musical, basically, that he'd written.
Ooh.
And I did a couple of weeks in. Where did I do? I did a week in Nottingham, Depping, for the guitarist Carl Orr, and then I did a week in York. That was really fun. And then I did stuff with Emilia Jones. I don't know if you know that film Coda that came out, deaf adults. It won. I think it got some Oscars. It was quite a big deal. Anyway, in the film, she plays a singer and sings both sides now in the film, and then for the BAFTA and the Oscar, basically for the pre-screenings to the awards, the things that they invite critics to come to. It was at the Savoy in London and at some other hotel in London, and basically we just did that, which was nice. I'm doing a bit with Laura Wright, who's an English soprano who's quite reasonably well known. Who else? What other stuff? Currently doing quite a bit with Mike Moran, who he wrote Barcelona for Queen and produced a lot of stuff. Worked with Ozzy, worked with Extreme, worked with Bruce Dickinson, worked with Deep Purple, The Who, worked with loads of people. So me and Mike currently write stuff for. We get these. Mike gets these films through, and if ever there's some like very guitar-y stuff, I end up kind of helping him do that, or we do that together. Whatever comes through the door, really. I'm kind of, my main focus at the moment is Utopia, though. I'm kind of. It can be such a miserable industry. Famously, the music industry as just like a hired gun. Because if you're not in London, you're really knackered. I think you are the 10th call on the list. I did in fact, I did the Barbican at New Year's Eve in London. I did Birmingham Symphony Hall the day before, and that was like a big orchestral Hans Zimmer versus John Williams orchestral thing. And they rang me the day before and said, "Oh, are you free to do this gig the next couple of days?" I was like, "Can you just give me some notice? Like, why am I always the last minute?" And I think it's because they know I can read.
Yeah,
pretty well, and they know I'll come in and do it. So I was shitting myself a bit, but I got on the stand, and there's the orchestra, and I was like, oh god, let's have a look at the parts then. And like you get your folder off the music stand that's been put down, and you think, oh Christ, what's in this? And there was one piece of music in it, which was the Top Gun theme. I was like, yes. So all I had to do was stand up at the right minute and go bow bow bow, and that was it.
Are you advertising? Obviously, it'll be networking and the people that you know in the industry, but are people just finding you on LinkedIn as well within the industry?
Every single bit of work that I've ever had professionally in the last 8 or 9 years has been as a result of doing Russell Watson's gig.
Right, I see. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because that shows that you are a professional within the industry.
Yeah,
and
you work with the musical director, who at the time was a guy called Ed Rugman, and then it was a guy called Richard John, then it was a guy called Chris Taylor, and now Mike Moran does it, who I work with a lot. But there you go. There you've got 4 MDs who all go off and do other shows. So you have to be in there with these people and then hustling like a maniac to try and keep these relationships going. If I can offer someone a bit of work, I'll try and do that. Not like I've got any work to really give, but I'll always try and get people involved. In fact, the guy who did the strings on the album, Jono, he's first violin on Les Mis on the West End and has been for a long time. And he does, I think he does the Book of Mormon and he does a load of other things. But I just have done loads of gigs with him. And so if he wants some guitar on something, I'll do it for him. And if I need some strings on something, he can do all the orchestra in his one studio by himself. You know, he just goes, there's first violin, brilliant, yeah. There's second violin, brilliant. He just lays it all up and there you've got like an orchestral thing. But yeah, so it's just it's all kind of come from being with Russell, you know. Russell's affiliation with Alid Jones, doing the duo album together, meant I work with Alid, you know, and then you meet Alid's management, and then you meet Alid's daughter, Amelia, who's in the film Coda. That's how that happened. And then you meet Apple, who produced Coda. It's just like it's a miserable industry, really, because there's no CVs. It's not like, oh, I'll send you to my CV, and they'll read it and go, oh, wow, he's got a good CV. They don't care. It doesn't work like that, you know.
You've got the endorsement, though, haven't you? You've shown that you're reliable, you can sight read music, and that you can turn up in 24 hours notice. As annoying as that is for you, you can actually do that, can't you? So yeah. I can see why that would help. Can I talk about? I'm interested in, you know, the first album, Stalker. So you've got Billy Reimer from the Dillinger Escape Plan guesting on that, and then that unbelievable drummer from Leprous.
Yeah.
How do you go about hiring those people? Because I'm not a musician, so I'm always interested to know how do you get them to play on your album?
There's no great mystery. It ultimately comes down to how much money have you got and can you just get in touch with him. I was just blindly emailing people. Have you got this guy's email address? Can't find it. It'll start with like, I don't know, like a Dillinger super fan maybe, who I've just seen on a forum. I'll go, do you actually know these guys? Because I'm thinking about doing this. Oh, well, I've got a bit of a blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, within like a couple of weeks, you can kind of get the email and then you say, I'm doing this album, paid of course. Are you up for doing it? How much is it? And then if it's not ridiculous, you can go, maybe it's worth paying that for a couple of reasons. Primarily because they make the songs sound ace.
Yeah.
They're so virtuosic and skilled that they produce the sounds in my head. Yeah. And it's so hard to find. I wouldn't have got them. I honestly wouldn't have got them if there was a guy down the road who could do that.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't have done it. I'd have just gone, well, it's much easier to have someone in the band than to hire these people in. But I thought, well, this is the first album. Maybe we make a bit of a statement and we get Lee Fisher from Fawn Limbs and Cy Opus, who was in those, and then Billy and Bard and a mate of mine, Simon Peter King, who's also a ridiculously good guitarist. And then Cy Blakelock, who was in Tangaroa. If you remember Tangaroa, and also in Dream Troll with the guitarist from Tangaroa. And so it was a bit of a like mix and match because Bard did 1, Billy did 2, so that was like, I can't remember how many tracks are on the album, like 3 of the 10 tracks covered, and then it was like, oh god, right, well Lee does 2, that's 5, Cy can do 2, other Cy can do 3, right, I think that's the drums sorted. But yeah, just cheek, basically.
Detective work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you say, Dillinger Escape Plan Facebook page. I'm like you. They are one of my all-time favorite bands, and it's well known on this channel. I always talk about it. I discovered Dillinger when I was at Runshaw Sixth Form College in Leyland. So 1999, 2000. Someone brought a cassette. It had Emperor, 9 Equilibrium on side A, and Dillinger Escape Plan, Calculated Infinity. And this is the height of new metal, so everyone's listening to Cold Chamber and Limp Bizkit, stuff like that. And to hear Dillinger Escape Plan in that environment, I was like, fucking hell, what is this? Is this even music? It's so heavy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I didn't know what to. It's one of them things, isn't it? That's what I wanted to try and recreate, or try and. That was my incentive for doing this stuff, is to try and do something that would just make people go, what is this? Like, I don't even know what to. I want the reviews to be like, I can tell it's dead good, but I don't know what it is. It's gonna take like quite a bit of time to get my head around it. But that's what I got with Dillinger. you know. And I had a couple of mates, luckily, who were kind of musos, and they were like, "Well, I think this is a bit of this, and I think this is a bit of that," and you know. And then people started saying jazz, or it's like jazz and jazzcore, and jazz, it's like hardcore with jazz. Or I was like, "What the fuck is the jazz? What is the jazz element?" Because my dad used to listen to jazz, and then I was like, "Oh, by jazz, do people just mean that they really know what they're doing? Because it's not like it swings, you know. It's not like it's improvised, you know. It's written, non-swinging. It's just an unusual harmony. They clearly understand how to put together unusual harmony, and that's like 20th century classical music. Because I don't hear any blues in it. If you think of jazz as being like blues and Western traditional 20th century classical music, there's really no blues in Dillinger. I only hear like 20th century classical music lines like Stravinsky or like Schönberg or even like Prokofiev or things like that. I can hear like that kind of detail. So I think jazz is just a bit of a catch-all for, oh, we did like 8 bars where it kind of goes, and then it never does it again. And it's like, oh, there's jazz, right? Okay. Yeah,
I think it's the solos, isn't it, from Ben Weinman? Because when you don't get many solos, but none of them are ever playing pentatonic blues scales.
Yeah,
they're all like diminished and really you can tell that the jazz fusion type shapes that he's playing on his fretboard.
Yeah, there's like lines that are. I'm just trying to think of the one from Sugar Coated Sour.
Yeah, I know which one. After 30 seconds. And it just slows the song down, doesn't it? Where he does this do 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 do.
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I guess so. I guess that is kind of a jazz solo. It's just not. It's just not in context with any. I don't know. This is it. I still don't really know. Just it's just great. It doesn't have to be anything. I mean, I guess you'd have to ask Ben Weinman what he thinks it is.
I've been trying to get an interview with him for the last 3 years. As one of my idols, the Scream Blast Repeat, our sister organization who reviewed your album, and we loved it. And obviously, I wanted to interview for this channel. Before we talk about Shame, can you just give us a brief background of the 2 new members? So you've got Jay Walsh on drums and Jimmy Wilson, second guitar player. I don't know anything about these musicians. Can you just fill us in?
Yeah, well, you probably won't. To be fair, I mean, Jay came as a recommendation from a mate of mine around here from the Blackpool music scene. And he said, Jay, I didn't even think that my mate would know anyone. He was like, oh, I know someone. And you know, as soon as it's like someone saying, let me give you some advice. You immediately go, what? So I was immediately like, all right. And he was like, yeah, this guy, Jay Walsh, he was in a band called When People Become Numbers. And I was like, well, do you know what? I don't know where else to go now. Like, I can't find. We had Mark Heron in from Ocean Size.
Oh, and cool. Yeah.
He smashed it. So we were rehearsing, and he smashed his shoulder to pieces until he just couldn't play. So we had to cancel the tour. He ended up really ruining his shoulder. So I was like, man, well, we can't stop. I can't just wait for 6 months while it recovers. I have to get somebody else in now to like keep it moving, or it'll just die. So Jay ended up being the guy who we got in, and he's just ace. He's got a really broad range of interests musically, like we all have, really. But as a drummer, that's good, because his favourite drummer is Dennis Chambers, like a jazzer or a session fusion-y kind of guy. So I was like, oh, well, Jay's going to have those liquid chops then if he's into that. It's not just going to be like...
Yeah.
It's going to have some, like, there's going to be some feel or some ability to solo interestingly. And so, how did I do this? I think I just got in touch, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to mention that we did stuff with Billy Reimer, which always helps. It means people take it a bit more seriously in the future." So then he was like, "Oh yeah, like, give me like a couple of weeks, and I'll try and get a video across. If you like it, great. If not, no drama." So he did a video, and I just thought, well, yeah, that's mega. It turned out to be dead good at producing, so he produced the album, which saved us even more money. And also dead good at, like, he's a bit of a polymath, also dead good at, like, videography, and so he did, like, one of the music videos.
Jay Walsh. Just in the Blackpool music scene, and now...
Oh, man, he moved he moved from Blackpool to near Bristol, like South Wales, just down there. So we are miles apart, all of us. Aaron lives south of London. Jay lives there. Jimmy's in Preston. Reese is in Liverpool. This is the closest band I could get together who could play it. No joke. That is the closest I could get it.
So who's Jimmy Wilson then? Because I'm familiar with Preston. My sister currently lives there. I've did the University of Life in Preston, and then actually went to UCLan as well. So I know Preston inside out. Who's Jimmy Wilson then? I wonder if I know him.
Jimmy was. So there was a couple of different options, and I thought, well, one way or the other, whoever it is on second guitar, I'm gonna have to sit down with them. I need to be able to sit down with them regularly and go through these parts because they're completely nuts, and explain how it goes and just work through it a bit. So I thought, well, someone local would be really useful. I knew a guy already, Adam Jones. He was in first, and then his life got a bit crazy, and he had to bail out, so he bailed out, and then Jimmy came in, and Jimmy's like, I used to teach Jimmy years ago, and he's an acoustic guitarist a lot of the time, but he's also kind of into the jazz thing as well, but he's quite a diligent guy. So I thought, well, it might take him a minute to learn all this. It might take him a while. Like, this could be a long project for him, but let's just get him in and get him trained up. And when he's ready, but at least something's moving. And so we missed the Liverpool gig, and we're hoping he's going to be on the next Preston gig, which will mean the live stuff will then become the 5-piece. But all the guitar on the albums is me so far, apart from one solo that Matt Baldwinson does on the first album. So Jimmy's in the band. We're just waiting for the point where he's got everything under his fingers, and he's really close. It's like 95% there. It's just like, it's such detailed music that if it's not together, it's really not together. You know, it's between like that and that. You know, if it just doesn't quite overlap right, it'll just be a total mess. So, that's that.
What about, I've been watching some of the playthroughs, for Aaron McSparron, your bass player. See, he's in that band signed to Season of Mist, isn't he? That instrumental black metal band. Is it Vipassy? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, he's in Vipassy and he's in Vervum.
Because I review most Season of Mist albums. It's probably my favorite metal. It is my favorite metal label. Yeah. So he's obviously unbelievable on his instrument. He plays a fretless bass. To what extent are you sitting down with him to show him the parts, or is he just transcribing that himself by ear?
I'll write all the bass parts, and then I'll send Aaron the sheet music for the bass parts, and then he'll learn the bass parts. And if anything that I've sent him doesn't make sense, I'll send him basically I'll write the MIDI file, and then I'll export him the score from Logic, and he will rewrite it if he needs to, in terms of, because Logic does loads of weird things sometimes. It puts notes that are not possible together, and I cannot be asked going back through it all. So I'll just give it him, and he can do it all. And then again, Aaron is very super diligent muso type musician. Like, he really sweats the small stuff. So I know that he will just be super thorough with it. So we never have to sit down. I never have to explain anything to him. It's just, those are the parts. There's the audio file. Learn it, and then he learns it, and that's it. Great.
That's impressive. I mean, because most musicians can't read music, can they? Certainly in rock and metal, and they're great musicians. It's not essential, but if you look there, you've just described, that saves you so much time that you can just send him the score and just leave him with it. You don't even need to follow up. It's like, he'll have that ready.
Yeah.
I mean, how difficult is it then to play this type of chaotic mathcore technical metal on a live stage? Because I know you played Liverpool as a 4-piece.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this month. How did that gig go? What kind of?
Really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went really well. We did a load of merch. It was the first one we did. I couldn't play 2 guitar parts, but on my pedal I can set up a harmonizer, with a few different harmonizing options. So sometimes it'll harmonize in a minor second, which will be dead like, I don't know. That's like quite a popular sound in this kind of math chord. It's just a dead jarring interval when you play it.
Yeah.
It's like a line played a fret up from where I'm playing it. So it's just like and for short periods of time that can be nice. And then I've got some where I had to like go, oh, well, these guitar parts are two separate parts. They're not just harmonized parts, but I'm going to have to settle for harmonized parts. And so for some bits, it was like, well, the closest I can get is harmonizing it by like a sixth. It means the last note's not the right note in the second guitar part, but whatever. I don't think anyone cares. And so it was fine. I managed to do it. It'll just be much more detailed when there's two guitar parts in there. But it's really hard to play live. But we've got a click track. You know, we're on click.
Yeah.
Everything's counted out. It's all there. It's all kind of everything that we need is in our ears. So it's actually quite hard. It's not quite hard to get lost, but it's much easier to not get lost.
Yeah.
You know, and all people are hearing is, Jesus, this sounds really together. It's like, well, it should be really together because there's a click track going, king, 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 3, 4, now. It's like, but I just don't think it could be such a disaster if that. You see, if you take something like Meshuggah, which is really complex, but it's complex in the sense that there are obvious rhythms happening in each instrument. So as long as you can count, you're all right.
Yeah.
Utopia, there's stuff where it speeds up and slows down, and there's a bit in Social Contracts where it's just a really bonkers line, and then it goes up and speeds up and speeds up, and then it hits a certain point. And try and do that really well in time together. If we lived next door to one another and we could rehearse every day, great. But we live fucking miles away, so we don't have that luxury. So we kind of have to have these things as well. On the track is synth from the album that goes front of house, you know, so you've got like the atmospheric stuff as well in there, which I think you need really. Again, I don't think people would miss it, but it's nice to hear when it's there. It's a bit more atmospheric, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I picked up on that in my review for Scream Blast Repeat. So yeah, let's talk about some of the tracks from your sophomore album then, Shane. So the title track, to me, I really like the intro. That's like got blissful, clean guitars, like an alternative rock band playing jazz, it sounded like. And then you mentioned Meshuggah. There's these guitars growling along like Meshuggah, and Chris Reese really puts his throat through hell, doesn't he, on this song?
Yeah.
And I just love that guitar tone. And I said, John Zorn and Mike Patton would love this music.
And it's so weird you should say that, because either the day that review came out or the day after, I hadn't read the review by this point. I emailed John Zorn to see like what do you think, you know, can we do a thing?
Okay, no,
but he bounced back. The email address doesn't work, so I'll have to try again. But exactly that. Yeah, it's like avant-garde. Yeah, and the Mike Patton thing, versatility in Reese's voice. You know, that's what we're trying to develop Reese to be more. Or Reese is trying to develop Reese to be more dynamic. You know, and so when we did the vocals for this album, we were a lot more careful to go. Let's mix it a little bit more and try and have the dynamic variety within your vocal range, not just like a guttural thing all the time. And even if it is a guttural thing, something a bit more interesting than just the standard angry thing. Like, can you make it more harrowing or darker or more black metal-y? Or no, we're not reinventing the wheel or anything. We're just trying to do different things with the voice more. But
yeah, because I think that's one of the reasons why I review tech death albums, and they're just instantly a 6 out of 10 every time. I think that music has just become so lifeless, and often it's the vocals. They put all this thought into the songs, and then they just bring someone in at the end just to growl in a monotone. You're like, put some effort into it. Like on this one, you know, you can hear the pain in the voice. There's some real high pitched, aggressive moments as well. There's life in it, and technical death metal. It's just, oh God, I think I'm just bored to death by that.
Yeah,
This album, because it is more mathcore, extreme metal, avant-garde. Straight away, it hooked me in. I was like, oh, fucking hell, this is my type of music.
Hmm.
But you've got songs like track number 4, Sun Damage, and I put, this is when I'm listening to it, I'm trying to envisage where I am. And I remember writing, do you want to explore the quiet country in the early morning where no human activity can spoil your solitude? You're walking down this country lane and then you get run over by a 7.5 ton truck. It's total fucking chaos, but
Yeah,
organized chaos, isn't it?
yeah.
Um, but I know that you obviously, Shame, I think it's about mental health. Lyrics are very important to this band. Obviously, the
I was
first
just going to
album.
say, as we talk
Yeah.
about tech death.
What Sun Damage? Can you share with us what this song's about lyrically?
Jesus, no. Hang on, let me get the record and let me have. Hang on. Oh God, I had all my vinyl out the other night. I was listening to loads of Sinatra with my mates, and I'm amazed I just found it then. Some damage. Jesus.
You're the lyricist, though, aren't you, as well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think again, like the music, a lot of it is very abstract. So there's there's a lot of like philosophy in there, I guess. Particularly, it's sort of a combination between Nietzsche and Wittgenstein, I think.
yeah.
And a lot of it is just like I worked and worked it myself. I fell and fell again. The more I worked, the more I fell. The more I thought, the closer I get to rock bottom. The only sure thing, and it's like that kind of is like a Nietzschean thing of you can only go so low before you go. This is a comfortable place of total fucking misery, right? I understand this place. Now what? And then I think the song is about just being driven to that point. Loads of people get to that point of just hopelessness, really. I think combining it with the word sun damage is like a concept of overexposure. Overexposure to life can just kill people sometimes. If that makes sense. It's a weird
Yeah.
paradox, so I mean, most of it is about fairly savage mental health stuff. Moving gently towards the grave, gift of failure. That's like a Nietzschean thing. Never argue with an idiot. That's a quote. Oh man, I can't even remember it. It's not Wordsworth. It's never argue with an idiot. They'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. Oh God, who said it? Blake? Was it Blake? Can't remember. Anyway, but it was a nice thing, and it's just about trying to. You can drive yourself mad trying to understand other people when you know that what they're saying can't be right, or is like cruel or inhuman, or people let themselves get away with a lot of bullshit. Really, the way that a lot of people behave. I'm sure we all do it in some way, but I think that trying to persuade people who are not prepared to A, listen to you, or B, change. See, I always approach everything as an idiot. Like, I don't really know. I don't know anything. Like, everything is too complex to really have a really good handle on. You can have your hidden sort of opinions of things, but they should always be changing with the latest thing. It's never a set thing. It should always be evolving and changing, and your opinion on this and that should always be updated, everything. If you just go, oh, this issue, right, I've got my sledgehammer points on that, bang, that's me forever now. If anybody asks me, I know what I'm going to say. Instead of like a more reactive way to a discussion where somebody says something and then you react to their statement with something directly related to their statement, as opposed to just derailing it off onto your own thing. And confirmation bias, I suppose, is the quick way to say it. But so that's not necessarily a mental health thing. It's just some advice. Never argue with an idiot from someone else. I didn't even come up with the phrase. So.
Yeah, but what you said there is something that resonates with me. And the older you get, I don't know if I speak for both of us. One lesson I learned was there's no shame in if you're in a conversation, someone asks for your opinion. In my early 20s, I would try to give my opinion and I'd be thinking, Christ, I'm an imposter here. But I want to keep up appearances and show that I know what I'm talking about. And now, the older you get, you're just like, I wish I could give you opinion. I just don't have enough knowledge about this. I could do next week. I could go and research it. And it's quite a liberating feeling, isn't it, doing that?
Of course it is. Well, it's a feeling of authenticity, because you go, I don't know. All I can do is take something like, oh God, no, let's not even specify anything because that in itself is dangerous. But take a big issue, and I can go, oh, this is interesting. There's like a few views on this, right? Well, what does like the Office of National Statistics say? Right, there's a fairly reliable. I don't know anything more reliable than the Office of National Statistics. All right, there might be this random guy on YouTube who says he's done all this thing, but who is this guy? He doesn't know anything. Ignore all that and go straight to the actual source material of what's available to you. Stay away from any opinions and just go, these are the numbers. What do I think of this? Oh, well, this appears to be this. And I can sort of have a bit of a guess, but I don't know. Some people are just like, bang, I know the answer. Oh, you're an idiot. Do your own research. Oh, you need to do your research. Oh, God. That's like, that is the never argue with an idiot bit. Okay, all right, let's just not.
Yeah.
Should we talk about something else?
Yeah, we're going to move on to religion and then politics.
Let's say COVID till the end. Yeah, and then we might want to kill each other. But yeah, it's just easier to not. And there's so many, and it's important to have an awareness of what's going on in the world. I think the world is so, and a newspaper like the Daily Mail, they make their grift is dividing people, and it is the culture war. That is their grift. There's the enemy, that group of people there. Call them woke, call them like leftist, call them whatever you want. That's their enemy. And there's no thought beyond that. And let's be honest, there's people on the other side who will do the same thing, right? I am left wing, right? I don't know where I am, but I feel spiritually left wing. Let's just say that. All right. I don't know why. I wouldn't even be able to defend that point particularly well, but that's where I feel. When you look at the people out there who represent the different parts of the spectrum, this part over here doesn't feel like my people, let's say. Mostly because it does that. It's very aggressive, and I think somewhere around the center, I don't even know, maybe on either side, somewhere around the center is where people are trying to think properly about the thing. Go too far one way and it's an identity thing about this is me, I am over here and I'm thumping the table for this particular issue or that particular issue on any side. And the truth is I just don't know. I'm probably an idiot. I just don't. I try and keep up, but it's too violent, that world of like hardcore. I watch politics live and just get angry. I don't watch Question Time anymore. I can't do that.
I know, I'm the same. I can't watch that now. It certainly doesn't make me cringe, but yeah, I just think, I start to think, is it good for me to be agitated for an hour?
Exactly.
And I know it's almost cowardly, I suppose, but I've had to withdraw from that because I'm going to end up living my life with prejudices, with hatred, and you can't live like that. It's bad for your mental health, isn't it? And come on. Most of us have a conscience as well. Who wants to live their life by defining themselves by the things they hate? It's very easy to do that, isn't it? And comforting, it can be. But fucking hell, it's bad. It's bad for you in the long run.
Oh, it's so bad for you. And you just think the available options. I could sit here now and I could watch a film that I'm really going to like. And at the end of it, I'll go, great. I feel great. That was good. Brilliant. Or I can watch something that's going to piss me off.
Yeah.
And then I'll go, that's ruined my fucking day. Why did I do that? Or I could sit and watch the news in the morning, or I could go to the gym and just go and feel better for doing that. Or get on the guitar, or do something creative, or do something positive. And so, I mean, I felt, during the Syrian thing and the Ukrainian thing, I thought that there was just such a polarizing set of opinions that the only way I could really get a good handle on this was to actually volunteer and to go and work with the Syrian family, which is what I did, and then the same with the Ukrainian thing. To go, what do you think? What do you think about the whole thing? Tell me about your experiences and tell me the vibe. And then you go, oh yeah, okay, a bit of a different angle on this. Still don't really know, but it's just a bit of a, if you immerse yourself in it a little bit, and that was, that was interesting as well, and a good vibe, and the friends, the people I've met. But now I'm kind of like, yeah, I've got enough shit in my mind that I need to just start purging that or solving that before I start thinking that I can have an opinion on politics or whatever it is. I'll do me, right? And everyone can go and do them.
Yeah, I understand that as well. And do you know what? The last thing I want to talk about in the interview, I love the final track, Moving Gently Towards the Grave, because it has this electronic optimism of mid-70s Kraftwerk, Autobahn. That's what it did to me. Now I've had this conversation with you, I was going to say, to what extent is this a cynical song? It's clearly not, because what you just said there about if you want to have an opinion of something, you will go to the source. What this song, I mentioned this, we call it in France, Les 30 Glorieux, these 3 decades of uninterrupted economic growth after the Second World War. And you've captured that spirit, but you've added like some sludgy guitar riffing in it as well.
Yeah.
I'm interested, because you put so much thought into every song. What were you trying to do with this song? Because it's not out of place. It's such an optimistic way to end the album. Was it meant to be optimistic?
Yeah, it's actually all meant to be optimistic or positive, but it's meant to, it's not cynical, and it's not, I hope it's not contrived in any way. It's just like, okay, so the beginning of the birth of Moving Gently Towards the Grave was that D major arpeggio. Boom, 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 boom. That's all it is. Now, I was just thinking that arpeggio falls within a harmonic major scale, right? A harmonic major scale is a major scale with a flattened sixth. And it's just a weird kind of slightly unusual sound. And when you pin a major triad like that, that's really common to, well, it exists in all of the other things, melodic minor, harmonic minor, major, exists in the diminished thing as well. It's kind of like a very common sound. It's in every song you've ever heard, pop song. So it's a really anchoring thing. Now, if you decorate that with unusual notes, you can pull people, boom, 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 boom. That's weird. That's like a weird line. But it's also triumphant.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that thing rolls through it all the time. It's like, there's your optimism all the time. That is the thread of life and happiness, and everything around it is just, that is just life trying to fuck things up. But that stays there all the time. Just try and focus on that, and then everything just kind of sweeps around it. And then the only lyrics are, well, there's moving gently towards the grave. And that is just supposed to create, the title just creates the sense of time, moving gently through time. And there's the arpeggio that just goes through it. And there's life with all its complexities dancing around it. And there's the message that Reese screams halfway through, moving gently. And it's just like, it's just a solid state. You get it when it comes in. There was actually a big choir at the end of it, but we couldn't mix it right. So we sacked it off. Or we maybe took some elements of it and made a bit of a choir thing, but there was like a big, I just tracked like a choir's worth of harmony, singing those last lyrics. And I guess there's a lyric in there, the ugliness of nature. It's not an original thought, but nature is a ugly, grim, horrible thing. Take your clothes off, go outside into a field now and see how far you get. Just you and it. And it will kill you pretty quickly unless you're super well prepared. It's a hard thing, and so the fact that it doesn't have to be so hard because we're human beings, or at least we're relatively sentient human beings. Those of us with a good soul, it's those positive actions that we do every day that keep the society together in any way. The social contract, that's another track from the thing. We agree not to just shit on each other broadly. Obviously, there are outliers in that, but that's how we tend to get on. We get on here because we want to have a nice conversation. That's at the root of it. And so we have a nice conversation and we're not hurling abuse at each other because we know the best way for us to be happy is to try and be encouraging to one another in whatever way we can and supportive to one another. And so that's a kind of theme there. But again, it's kind of through the album, even if it's not overt. It's all supposed to be positive. This is all supposed to be medication music, one kind or another, purging or relatable, or it's not music you're necessarily just supposed to listen to when you're down. You could listen to this when you're really happy. And I think that's something that I don't do. If I'm sad, I don't listen to sad music or happy music. I probably don't listen to music at all if I'm sad. I wonder, it's too confusing for me. It's like if I'm sad, that's it. I'm sad. If I want to listen to music, I want to listen to music, and that's when I'll get the most out of it, if that makes sense. But
yeah, because I certainly like the mathcore genre because it makes me feel alive. If anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, you're right. For example, last year my dad passed away, and I was just listening to The Cure and Joy Division. I needed that, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be listening to that every day because those records are so precious to me.
Yeah.
That it's almost like I couldn't just put on that 1982 album by The Cure, Pornography, and not give it 100% attention. It feels like I'm insulting the album.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know where you're coming from on that. Just one last question then. So Utopia, it sounds to me, I know you said it's your main focus at the moment. Can we, and you seem settled now, even though you're living all over the place in the UK, can we at least expect one more album, in your opinion?
Yeah, sure. Many more albums, I suspect. Yeah, I think about the new album. And it's funny, like something you said earlier, when you listen to Sun Damage, you're trying to create the image in your head, or you're reacting to it in a certain way. And what I'm trying to do is figure out how you're reacting to things. So when we do our next step, let me separate these two things. Like, I do not ever write for the listener. Like, that's not something I'm interested in doing at all. I just don't. That's not what I do. I don't want to do that. But I do want to know why people like certain parts of the albums, because actually all the reviews have got different. I think in your review you said you weren't so keen on Never Argue with an Idiot, and then Mathcore Index, I think it was your review. I can't remember. I think it might have been your review. It doesn't matter. And then in another interview with Mathcore Index, they said, "Oh, our favourite song on it is Never Argue with an Idiot." And I was like, "Well, there we go. I mean, that's fine, Okay, cool. Well, that doesn't help me at all write the next album." I just go, let's just see where we're up to when we come to writing, and let's just see where I am, and I'll put some stuff together, and we'll do exactly what we did with the last one, and we'll release it, and maybe it's good. But I think what I'm really trying to do, got a meeting with someone after this about trying to push it up to the next level, professionally.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard, and it's, I really don't know how to do that. It's something I'm just horribly bad at. And so I think we need to be able to, I think we've got round about 2,000 monthly Spotify listeners at the moment. And I really want to just start pushing that up and reaching more and more people. And I think maybe one of the ways that we'll do that is by doing more collaborations with people who are outside of this genre, but parallel genres.
Yeah.
Nip over here to capture some weird sort of art DJ thing and see if we can hook into that a little bit and then maybe just release some singles with different people and just try and develop these things a little bit. But there'll definitely be more. Yeah.
Excellent. Can you do me a favor? Can you just hold up the vinyl? Because you've got the 12-inch. That looks great. So the album came out Was it the? It was the 2nd of February, wasn't it? This year that came out.
It was the 2nd of Feb, on exactly the same day that American band Meth released an album called Shame.
I've just reviewed it. I ended up giving it a 6. That was just. I love the first half of that album, but fucking hell, that really it was impossible to listen to towards the end. I really appreciate Seb Alvarez what he's done there. He's just put his life into that record. But fucking hell, 40 minutes of that, and I listened to a lot of post metal. That even I was just like, shit. I don't know how much repeat listening value there is, but I could go back to it and dip in and think this is art.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, because I was like, shame. Hang on, I've just reviewed Utopia. They've got the same title. So yeah,
Everybody at that point, when we really they put it on, I think they shared it on Mathcore, and I was just like, for fuck's sake, for fuck's sake, and they must have been like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? So I think yeah. Anyway, whatever. It's one of those things, and it's no drama. But
yeah.
the next album is just going to be like a keyboard bash. Like no one's releasing an album called, semicolon YFX. Do you want this still up?
Yes, thank you. So, are viewers best to go to Bandcamp to get that, or do you have your own card? Is it that they can get it from?
If you head over to Bandcamp, you can pick it up there. We've got some new merch coming, some really nice like jellyfish hoodies. We've got a few t-shirts on there and some caps, and Stalker is available on. So Stalker was released through APF record.
Yeah.
Through Andrew Field, who's a really top bloke. So he put that out. So you can get Stalker and a really nice yellow t-shirt from APF's site. In fact, no, you can get that on Bandcamp, and I think it's split, so APF deal with that part of the merch on there, and then everything else is us.
Superb, yeah, right. Oh, CD as well, because I buy CDs. Is it available on CD?
Yeah, we're getting some CDs done. We need to get the artwork just remodified for CD, and we need to get some quotes. We took a bit of a loan to do all this stuff, so we're in a position where we're like, okay, we're kind of not far off being able to pay this guy the loan back. Do we want to do that, or should we risk smashing a load more money into a load of merch and hope that by the time it's payback day, we've recouped it again? So we're just trying to be a little bit careful at the moment, but we'll definitely have some CD in the next month or so.
I'll keep an eye out. I'll buy that. Yeah, got to add it to my collection. So thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate that, John. I feel, again, I say this to a lot of my guests, I feel like I've learned so much about the industry, about the thought processes. I know it's always subjective. It goes into songwriting. Absolutely fantastic. Could go on for another hour, but I know you've got an important meeting. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you on tour. I currently live in Hertfordshire, so I know you're in Surrey, Guildford, but if you play in London,
yes,
I'll definitely come to the show and I'll see you there.